Imagine a 30-year-old guy controlling nearly 10,000 acres of Yukon wilderness, pulling over $40 million in gold annually, and running mining operations so massive they function like an industrial city. That's Parker Schnabel, and he didn't inherit this empire. He built it from scratch starting at age 16, betting his college fund on literal dirt. So how'd he pull it off? And what's actually happening on all that land? Let's dig in. The empire nobody saw coming. Let me paint a picture of what Parker Schnabel controls right now, because the scale is genuinely insane. We're talking about 10,000 acres of prime Yukon territory. That's bigger than some actual towns, sprawling across Dominion Creek with mineral rights, water licenses, and infrastructure that looks less like a mining operation and more like a self-contained industrial city. At the center of this empire sits a $15 million land acquisition that represents the largest private placer gold deal in modern Yukon history. 400 mining claims, 80,000 ounces of recoverable gold estimated in the ground. At current gold prices pushing past $2,500 per ounce, we're looking at a gross asset valuation approaching $200 million. And when gold spikes above $5,000, that number doubles to $400 million potential sitting under Parker's dirt. But it's not just about what's buried. It's about the machine he's built to get it out. Little Flake Mining, Parker's primary operating company, runs 4 massive wash plants simultaneously during peak season, something no private placer operation in the Klondike has ever attempted. We're talking Roxanne, Big Red, Slucifer, and Big Bob, industrial beasts processing millions of cubic yards of earth annually, running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week during the short Yukon mining season. The equipment fleet alone is staggering. Cat 700 and 460 excavators ripping frozen ground, articulated rock trucks hauling overburden across miles of haul roads, custom-built wash plants, each representing millions in investment, Miller welding rigs for on-site fabrication and emergency repairs. The whole operation burns through $100,000 to $250,000 daily when you factor in diesel, wages, maintenance, and capital costs. And the crew? About 50 people working 2 12-hour shifts, managing everything from excavation to gold recovery to mechanical repairs in one of the most isolated regions in North America. Dominion Creek sits 2 hours from Dawson City with 0 cell service, which means total self-sufficiency. If something breaks, you fix it yourself or watch millions in production evaporate while equipment sits idle. During a record week in 2025, Parker's operation pulled 827 ounces of gold, worth roughly $2.9 million in a single week. That's what some small mines produce in an entire decade. The season target: 10,000 ounces, $40 to $50 million in revenue annually, supporting debt obligations, operational costs, and the relentless expansion that's turned Parker into the king of the Klondike. This isn't some family hobby that got lucky. This is industrial-scale mining operating at a level that rivals corporate operations, controlled by someone who's barely 30 years old. So how does a kid end up owning this much land, running this kind of operation, and dominating an industry filled with guys who've been doing this for decades? The story doesn't start with millions or fame or reality TV cameras. It starts with a grandfather, a small mine in Alaska, and a decision made at 16 that most people would have called insane. Let's rewind and see how Parker Schnabel built an empire from dirt. Big Nugget and the grandfather who started it all. Parker Schnabel's story doesn't begin in the Yukon. It starts in Haines, Alaska, at a place called Big Nugget Mine, where his grandfather, John Schnabel, known to everyone as Big John, ran a small but profitable gold mining operation. Most kids grow up playing video games or joining Little League. Parker grew up operating heavy machinery. By age 5 years old, he was learning to run excavators under Big John's watchful eye. While other kindergartners were learning their ABCs, Parker was learning dirt composition, overburden depths, and how to read a cut for gold-bearing gravel. Big John wasn't just teaching his grandson a trade, he was instilling a philosophy. Mining isn't about luck, it's about discipline, efficiency, and never quitting when things get hard. Those lessons got hammered into Parker through childhood summers spent working the Big Nugget claim instead of going to camp or hanging out with friends. But here's the thing about Big Nugget. It was limited. Small operation, finite reserves, and geologically constrained compared to what the Yukon offered. Big John knew the real potential lay north, in the Klondike, a region with deeper alluvial deposits, massive untapped claims, and the kind of scalability that Alaska couldn't match. So when Parker turned 16, he faced a decision that would define the rest of his life. He'd been accepted to college, had a trust fund set aside specifically for tuition. The normal path would have been go to school, get a degree, maybe come back to mining later with credentials and connections. Parker chose differently. He took that college fund, money that was supposed to buy an education, and used it as seed capital to launch a mining operation in the Yukon. No degree, no backup plan, just a teenager betting everything on his ability to find gold in one of the harshest environments on Earth. And here's where it gets wild. His first move wasn't to some easy, proven ground. Parker leased a claim at Scribner Creek from Tony Beets, one of the most dominant and notoriously difficult landowners in the entire Dawson City district. The lease agreement was brutal. Tony Beets structured it with an escalating royalty that started at 10%, climbed to 15%, and eventually hit 25% once production reached certain thresholds. Translation: the more gold Parker found, the bigger cut Tony took. Parker assumed 100% of the extraction risk, equipment costs, fuel, wages, everything, while Tony sat back and collected a guaranteed percentage of the gross. Most people would have called that deal a trap. Parker saw it as tuition, because working under those terms forced a level of operational efficiency that would later become his signature. Every gallon of diesel had to be optimized. Every man-hour had to count. There was zero room for waste because Tony's royalty ate so deep into margins that even small inefficiencies killed profitability. But Parker made it work. During those early seasons at Scribner Creek, he operated with a rudimentary fleet, used equipment like the Little Blue wash plant, and beat up D10 dozers he'd bought off the Hoffman crew after their disastrous Klondike attempt. Nothing fancy, nothing new, just functional machinery kept running through sheer mechanical determination. And every cleanup, every ounce of gold recovered, got funneled back into the operation. Better equipment, more efficient systems, incremental improvements that compounded season after season. By season 7 of Gold Rush, Parker had saved enough to purchase a brand new custom-built industrial wash plant called Slucifer. That was the signal. He wasn't just surviving anymore, he was scaling. But working Tony Beets' ground, no matter how profitable, came with a ceiling. Parker was making Tony rich while building someone else's empire. The royalty structure meant Parker could never capture full value from his own work. And that realization, that fundamental limitation, planted the seed for what would become his defining move. Because Parker didn't want to lease ground forever. He wanted to own it, control it, capture 100% of the value instead of handing a quarter of it to a landlord. And that ambition would eventually lead him to the deal that changed everything. The formation of Little Flake Mining. By 2014, Parker had outgrown the kid learning the ropes phase. He'd proven he could run a profitable operation under brutal lease terms, manage crews, optimize equipment, and consistently hit production targets. But he was still fundamentally working for someone else, paying Tony Beets a cut that funded Tony's own projects while Parker absorbed all the risk. So Parker made the next big move. He formalized his operation into Little Flake Mining, a dedicated placer gold mining company focused exclusively on the Klondike region with potential expansion into Alaska. This wasn't just slapping a name on paperwork. It was a strategic shift from family-assisted venture to serious corporate entity designed for scalability. Little Flake Mining operated under a philosophy that separated Parker from nearly every other miner in the territory: data over intuition. Most veteran Klondike miners rely on experience-based prospecting, guys who've been doing this for 30, 40 years trusting their gut on where to dig. Parker took a different approach. He hired a productivity advisor whose sole job was performing rigorous time and motion studies, tracking truck movements, fuel consumption, shift patterns, identifying micro inefficiencies that when scaled across 24-hour operations resulted in massive losses. Think about that for a second. While other miners were winging it based on feel, Parker was treating mining like industrial engineering. Every haul road optimized, every shift timed, every piece of equipment monitored for maximum uptime. The difference between running at 80% efficiency versus 95% efficiency across a $250,000 daily burn rate? Millions in annual savings. And the results spoke for themselves. Little Flake Mining grew from a single plant, small crew setup into the largest private placer operation in the Yukon territory. Production numbers climbed season after season. Equipment upgraded from used machinery to custom-built industrial systems. Crew size expanded from a handful of guys to 45 to 50 employees, working 2 12-hour shifts, ensuring 24/7 equipment utilization. But here's what really set Parker apart. He wasn't chasing short-term gold. He was building infrastructure for long-term domination. Every dollar that came out of the ground got reinvested into better equipment, more claims, expanded operations. While other miners cashed out and lived off their earnings, Parker was playing a completely different game, building an empire that could sustain itself for decades. And by the late 2000s, that strategy had positioned him for the move that would cement his place as the undisputed king of the Klondike, the Dominion Creek acquisition. The $15 million gamble that changed everything. In 2023, Parker Schnabel pulled off the biggest placer gold land deal in modern Yukon history, and it wasn't even close. He bought the Dominion Creek placer claims for $15 million. 400 individual mining claims covering roughly 10,000 acres of prime gold-bearing territory. And here's the kicker. Geological surveys estimated approximately 80,000 ounces of recoverable gold sitting under that dirt. Let's do the math real quick. 80,000 ounces at a conservative $2,500 per ounce equals $200 million in gross asset value. When gold prices spike above $5,100 per ounce, which they've done recently, that number jumps to $400 million. Parker paid $15 million for an asset potentially worth 20 times that amount. But it wasn't just about the gold. It was about ground security. For years, Parker had been profitable running leased claims, but he was always vulnerable. Landlords could jack up royalties, lease agreements could expire. Every ounce he pulled enriched someone else while he carried all the extraction risk. The Dominion Creek purchase fundamentally changed that equation. Now Parker owned the ground, controlled the water licenses, captured 100% of the value from every ounce recovered. The financial structuring of the deal was as ambitious as the mining itself. Parker put down roughly $5 million up front, with the remaining $10 million structured as seller financing to be paid over 3 years. That means annual debt obligations of about $3.3 to $3.5 million on top of the operation's already massive daily burn rate. To meet those payments while covering $100,000 to $250,000 in daily operational costs, Little Flake Mining had to maintain high-volume, high-grade production. No room for bad seasons. No tolerance for equipment failures that halt production for weeks. The pressure was relentless, but Parker had built his entire career preparing for exactly this kind of high-stakes operation. And Dominion Creek wasn't just any ground. It was virgin territory, largely untouched by previous generations because the overburden was too deep and the cost of removing it was prohibitive before modern equipment existed. We're talking 40 feet of frozen muck and worthless gravel sitting on top of the gold-bearing pay layer. For Parker's operation, equipped with CAT 700 excavators and industrial-scale wash plants, that depth wasn't a problem. It was an advantage. Because it meant the competition, smaller operators without the capital to move that much dirt, couldn't touch it. Dominion Creek was a fortress accessible only to those with serious machinery and serious cash flow. The deal also included something critically important that most people overlook: water licenses. In the Yukon, you can own mining claims all day, but without water rights, you can't process gravel. Parker's Dominion Creek licenses run through 2030, giving him a guaranteed 6-year operational window to extract that 80,000-ounce reserve without regulatory uncertainty. But owning the ground was just step one. Now Parker had to prove he could actually get the gold out. And that required building a mining infrastructure unlike anything the Klondike had ever seen. 4 mining plants and a city-sized operation. Most miners in the Klondike run 1 wash plant, maybe 2 if they're ambitious and well-funded. Parker Schnabel runs 4 simultaneously during peak season, and the logistics of making that work are genuinely wild. Let's break down the fleet. Because this is where the scale becomes real. Roxanne is the workhorse, the high-volume primary plant that's been the core of Parker's operation for years. Legendary throughput, proven reliability, the kind of machine you build an empire around. Big Red is the mobile unit, custom-built for quick relocation to new cuts. When Parker identifies a hot pay streak, Big Red gets moved in fast to capitalize before the season window closes. Slucifer is the heavy-duty virgin ground processor, designed specifically to handle the dirty gravels of new claims where previous mining hasn't cleaned out the clay and rocks. It's a beast built for Dominion Creek's deep, untouched deposits. And then there's Big Bob, the ultra-scale Dominion Creek plant representing roughly $84 million in cumulative production since it went online. This thing processes dirt at a volume most operations can't even imagine. Running 4 plants means managing 4 separate processing streams, 4 sets of maintenance schedules, 4 potential failure points that could halt millions in weekly production. And it's not like these plants sit next to each other. They're spread across miles of active mining cuts, each requiring dedicated crews, haul roads, settling ponds, and support infrastructure. The excavation and haulage fleet backing these plants is equally massive. Cat 700 and 460 excavators strip frozen overburden and load gold-bearing gravel into articulated rock trucks that traverse soft, muddy terrain most vehicles would sink into immediately. These aren't normal construction machines. These are industrial titans built for the kind of punishment that would destroy civilian equipment in days. And here's what makes Parker's operation different from everyone else. 24-hour shifts. Most miners shut down overnight. Parker runs 2 12-hour crews, keeping equipment moving around the clock during the short Yukon summer when mining is even possible. That effectively doubles production capacity, but it also doubles the maintenance burden and requires a level of mechanical self-sufficiency that most operations can't sustain. Because here's the reality. Dominion Creek sits 2 hours from Dawson City with 0 cell service and no nearby repair facilities. When something breaks, and in mining, things break constantly, you fix it yourself or watch production halt, while debt obligations keep piling up. That's where guys like Mitch Blaschke and Chris Dumit come in. Expert mechanics running Miller Big Blue 800 welding units and Trailblazer 325 diesel rigs, fabricating parts and repairing cracked chassis directly in the field. When a wash plant feed chute collapsed mid-season, a catastrophic failure that could have cost weeks of downtime, Parker's crew had it rebuilt and operational within 48 hours. That kind of response time is what separates Little Flake Mining from everyone else. There's no redundant equipment sitting idle. Every machine runs at near 100% uptime because the financial model demands it. A single day of lost production can cost $250,000. A week, over $1.8 million gone. But the machinery is only half the story. Running a city-sized operation requires managing the human infrastructure too. And that's where things get genuinely complex. How he manages 50 people in the middle of nowhere. Little Flake Mining employs approximately 50 people during peak season, and managing that workforce in one of the most isolated environments on Earth is its own full-time operation. We're talking about portable modular housing units, industrial kitchens serving 3 meals daily, pre-made lunches delivered to operators in trucks so they don't have to stop working, and shift-based coordination meetings every 12 hours to keep everyone aligned. The camp operates like a small town. Limited to non-existent cell service means everything runs on radio communication. No internet to kill time. No streaming Netflix after shift. Just work, eat, sleep, repeat for months straight during mining season. And the cost of maintaining that workforce is staggering. Assuming an average of 45 employees at $100,000 to $150,000 each, when you factor in salaries, bonuses, housing, and benefits, you're looking at roughly $6.75 million in annual labor costs. That's before diesel, equipment, parts, or debt service. But here's what's interesting. Parker's crew retention is significantly better than most Klondike operations. In 2025, 7 members of Tony Beets' crew left mid-season to join Parker's team, a move that sent shockwaves through the district. People were calling it the Beets defection, and it wasn't about money. It was about management style. Tony Beets runs old-school operations, brute force, fix it when it breaks, push equipment until it dies. Parker's operation is organized, Maintenance-focused, data-driven. Equipment gets serviced before failures happen. Crews know their schedules weeks in advance. The whole operation runs smoother, and experienced miners notice. By hiring that productivity advisor to streamline workflows and investing in better-maintained equipment, Little Flake Mining became the employer of choice in the Klondike. When you're working 12-hour shifts in the Yukon wilderness, the difference between a well-run operation and a chaotic one isn't just about comfort. It's about whether you make it through the season without losing your mind. And that reputation for competence extends beyond just mining. Parker's operation has earned recognition most people don't even know about. The environmental edge nobody talks about. Here's something that doesn't fit the rugged gold miner stereotype. In 2022, Parker Schnabel won the Robert E. Leckie Award for Excellence in Environmental Stewardship from the Yukon government. Yeah? The guy ripping millions of cubic yards of earth annually got an award for environmental responsibility. And it wasn't just PR, it was strategic. Parker's operation implements advanced dust and water control systems, habitat restoration programs, and hydro-engineered tailings storage that goes beyond regulatory minimums. The 2026 strategy includes integrated land use recovery, where topsoil restoration and native species seeding happen concurrently with mining operations, preserving land for future forestry or natural regeneration. Why bother when most miners do the bare minimum? Because environmental compliance isn't just a regulatory hurdle, it's a competitive advantage. By exceeding environmental standards, Parker ensures his water licenses stay secure, faces less friction from local communities and regulators, and maintains operational flexibility that miners with sketchy environmental records lose. Plus, there's the legacy mining cleanup angle. Historically, placer mining was inefficient, often leaving 10% to 20% of the gold in waste piles. Parker's operation has implemented modular ore sorting and tailings recovery systems that reclaim over 85% of residual minerals from historic dumps. That's not just environmentally responsible, it's profitable. Reprocessing old tailings generates revenue while cleaning up messes left by previous generations. And honestly, the environmental focus is part of what separates Parker from the old guard. Guys like Tony Beets built empires through sheer volume and persistence. Parker's building his through efficiency, innovation, and playing the long game where regulatory compliance and community relations actually matter. But while Parker's been building this empire in the Yukon, he's also been exploring expansion opportunities that could take his operation to the next level. The future: Australia, Creek, and beyond. Dominion Creek gave Parker ground security and an 80,000-ounce reserve. But Parker's not the type to sit on success. In January 2023, Little Flake Mining signed a production royalty agreement on 5.5 miles of alluvial gold claims at Australia Creek with Metallic Minerals Corp. This deal is fundamentally different from Dominion. Instead of outright purchase, Parker operates as the exclusive extraction partner, receiving the majority of gold produced while paying Metallic Minerals a variable royalty. This lets Parker access high-potential virgin ground without dropping another $15 million up front. The geological significance of Australia Creek is wild. From the 1920s to 1960s, the valley served as a utility corridor providing water and hydroelectric power to massive floating dredges operated by Yukon Consolidated Gold Corporation. Because it was infrastructure, it was never mined. Modern drilling has revealed gold and gravel values rivaling the best-producing areas of the historic Klondike, making it one of the most lucrative new discoveries in decades. Parker's commitment includes a $1 million minimum annual work requirement and a winter drilling program of 400 to 600 holes to map pay streaks before mining begins. It's aggressive, expensive, and exactly the kind of frontier expansion that defines his approach. And then there's the technology angle. As the operation moves into 2026 and beyond, the focus shifts from expanding land holdings to intensifying extraction efficiency through AI and automation. Parker's leading the Yukon in adopting autonomous excavation machinery, satellite-based mineral detection, and IoT devices monitoring operational efficiency in real time. The projection for 2026 includes deploying a new mining machine designed to boost gold extraction efficiency by 30%, part of a broader industry trend toward automation expected to see 78% adoption among top-tier operators. By 2026, Little Flake Mining is estimated to be 30% more energy efficient than it was in 2022, largely due to remote sensors, precision extraction techniques, and AI-driven geological mapping that identifies mineral veins with greater accuracy while reducing waste material processed. Parker's also looking at his legacy differently now. He's not just mining, he's building something that could outlast him. The move from high-royalty leasing to outright land ownership at Dominion Creek provided the foundation. The technological investments ensure the operation stays competitive, and the environmental stewardship guarantees regulatory security for decades. At 30 years old, Parker Schnabel controls an empire generating $40 to $50 million annually, sitting on reserves potentially worth $400 million, employing 50 people, and operating at a scale that rivals corporate mining companies. He dropped out at 16, bet his college fund on dirt, and turned it into the most productive gold-producing operation in the modern Klondike. And we conclude our journey through Parker Schnabel's massive land empire and how built it. Which part of his story fascinated you the most? Let me know in the comments, and for more such interesting peeks into the lives of ultra-rich, take a look at Global Status.